Ever since the Nixon family moved into the White House, 60 Minutes has been asking if our cameras might not take a tour of the second-floor living quarters there. Well, a few weeks back, Tricia Nixon invited Harry and me to come on down to Washington for what turns out to be the nation's first televised glimpse of upstairs in the White House. We taped the broadcast on the Saturday before the president announced his decision to enter Cambodia. That was only a month ago. But in light of all that has happened since, it seems a good deal longer. We began on the Truman Balcony overlooking the South Lawn.
Today's a beautiful day, and on days like this, it's a pleasure to be out here. Sometimes we come here late in the evening after my father takes a break from his many important matters, and we sit out here and have discussions, or sometimes we'll have a candlelight dinner here on the balcony. And as you can see, the tourists are over here by the fence, and for a change, we watch them. And sometimes they see us, and we all wave.
Does the lawn get used much, Tricia? Did the tennis court get played on? The golf green there?
Yes, you can see the grounds here are beautiful. They're 18 acres. And we use all the facilities. Julie is just learning how to play golf, and so David's a very enthusiastic teacher for her. And they've used the putting green, and I'm learning how to play tennis. So I've used that before, and also other members of the staff use these facilities too. So you can see that this area is very well used.
The Oval Room, the yellow Oval Room as it called, is just inside here?
That's right. Yes. Should we go there now?
I gather that what happens here is that, among other things, is that the president greets other heads of state in this room before you go down for dinner?
Yes, that's right. As you can see, this is perhaps the most formal room on the second floor, the family floor. And this is where my parents greet their most important visitors. And right behind you, you can see the flag of the United States and the president's flag mounted on these standards. And a military guard comes up just a few seconds prior to the time that they descend the grand staircase, removes the colors, and carries them ahead of the party to the tune of ruffles and flourishes, and then hail to the chief.
Does the room get any family use, Tricia?
Oh, yes. You can see the fireplace here lends itself very well to family gatherings, and sometimes before dinner or after dinner, we'll all sit here around the fire and have discussions and talks. Above the fireplace is one of our favorite paintings. This is one by Rembrandt Peale, and it's of George Washington, an original.
A lot of pictures of General Washington, but he was the only president who never lived here.
That's right, he was the only one.
I take it that that's not a trophy case of things that you have won at tennis or paddle.
Hardly. You're so right. This is a wonderful collection of the Biddle Vermeil that was given under the Eisenhower administration. And as you can see, it's extensive. There are representations from Germany, Italy, France, England.
Why that row of books up there in the middle of that?
Yes, doesn't that look intellectual? But I must tell you that those are just fronts, and that is that there's a little secret compartment back there.
Oh, that's a
Those are not books at all.
Put in by the president during Prohibition, I suppose.
Jacqueline Kennedy decorated this room the last time it was
That's
done.
right.
And your mother, I gather, decorated the center hall out here?
Yes, she did. She did that soon after we moved into the White House. Because we have so many visitors to the house, every time a new administration comes in, it's really time for the people themselves to put a bit of themselves into the house. So let's go out and look at it if you'd like.
You get someone to play ruffles and flourishes and we leave?
We'll let you unanimously.
Now, did your mother really decorate this, or did she simply call in a decorator and say, it's yours?
Oh, no, she really took a personal hand in decorating this floor. We've lived in many homes all over the country, and in each one my mother's tried to bring a bit of our personalities into the home, and I think that's what makes for an interesting home, you know, when you can see what the interests of the people are and what their tastes are.
Did she choose this warm yellow?
Yes, she chose this color. She thought, well, as she said it, that she wanted to bring a bit of sunlight into the hall because, as you can see, there are no windows here. And so she thought that this would be very cheerful.
What's Looks to me like you just recently walled up an old door there, Tricia.
You just pointed that out, and I'd never noticed it before, but you're right, it does look like that. And as you can see, this color is quite deep for yellow, and it does enhance the beautiful molding.
What about the pictures here in the hall?
There's some beautiful paintings on this floor and in this hall. The one right behind me of Carl Schurz Park by the American artist William Blackens is one of them. This park was one that was right across from the school that Julie and I attended in New York. And whenever classes got just a bit dull, we would look longingly out of the window and see the activity that was going on in the park.
Who chooses the books? Are these all your mother and father's books, or?
No, most of our books are in our home in California. The library up here was started under the Hoovers, and they were great world travelers, and they had books on foreign lands and geology and sociology especially. And since that time, the Association of American Booksellers has donated a number of books during each administration. So the White House has quite a fine collection of books now. And then next to the books on either side of them, you can see the exquisite Being birds. Marshall Bean was an American artist. And this is one of my favorites, the little hummingbirds here.
Are all of these in here historical pieces, or are they Nixon family furniture, or what?
Well, they're really neither. Our furniture is in our home in California, and the furniture here we found in the storehouse that the White House has maintained for a number of years. There's a lot of furniture there that has been used in other administrations, and so some of it we were able to obtain from there.
Do you do most of your family living right here in the hall?
No, not most of it, although this is a pleasant place to come. But really where the family likes to congregate is the most informal place on this floor, and it's this next hall down here.
Tricia, is this the place, if you had a 2-bedroom bungalow, that would be the living room?
Yes, I think that's safe to say, because as you can see, this is the most informal room on this floor. And whenever we congregate as a family, most likely it's here.
Do you congregate as a family fairly often?
Yes, we do. At least in the evening, my mother and my father and I sit here before dinner when we're all together. And then on the weekends that Julie and David can come down, we're all together here too.
Can you live out of a goldfish bowl and like anybody else here in the White House?
Yes, you really can, because I think that when you're living in the White House, you are on display an awfully lot, and it is a bit like a goldfish bowl. But it's really more like a goldfish bowl when you're out of it than when you're in it. So that when you come home, and this is our home while my father is serving the nation, we really feel that we can relax here.
That's the astonishing thing, I think, about this room in particular, that it does look like anybody's, and perhaps not anybody's, like a very nice living room.
It is very comfortable.
What about television? Do you watch television together, or just on state occasions when your dad's speaking?
Well, we all watch different kinds of programs. My father likes to watch the sports programs on television when he can. He'll be able to watch maybe a couple innings of a game once in a while. And we all look for the specials and the newscasts, and of course 60 Minutes. Then of course we sit around here when my father is giving a speech or a major address, a news conference. And then when he comes upstairs after being downstairs and giving it, he usually sits right here, and there's a little telephone here. And so he calls his staff, and he calls Julie and David and various other members of the family to see how they thought he did.
There's a card table over there in the corner, too. Who does that?
Well, we all enjoy playing games, and we sit around the table and play games there.
Does it make much difference so far as the kinds of things you would do as a family being in the White House? In other words, are the games the kinds of things you would do during an evening the same as you would have done 5 years ago?
Well, yes, we're doing the same things that we did a few years ago, so I would say yes.
Now, your mother's sitting room, I gather, is in through there.
Yes, it is. And I think that next, if you don't have museum feet, Maybe we can see it. But before we do, I'd just like to point out the view from this beautiful window. As you can see, the formal Oval Office is right across the way, the West Wing. And that's where my father does a lot of his important work. And at the time of the Apollo 11 moon landing, we were all sitting here, my mother, David, Julie, and Mrs. Mamie Eisenhower. And remember when he called the astronauts just after they'd landed on the moon? Well, simultaneously, we looked over there and saw him phoning the astronauts while we saw it on television. So we sort of looked back and forth. And then across the way, you can see the gray building over there, and that's the executive office building.
Some people would like to tear that down, would you?
Oh, I think it would be a shame, even though it is an architectural conglomeration of different styles. I think it's a real landmark, and I would be sorry to see it go.
I gather your mother really does some work here.
Yes, she does. She spends many hours a day working in this room. And here on my right is the desk where she spends a lot of time reading and answering the hundreds of letters that she receives every week. And all of us feel that in this way she can act as the eyes and ears for my father, because the people who write to her do express the opinions of many people in the country and their concerns. And so she does spend quite a bit of time here.
Do you think people would write more candidly to the wife of the president than to the president?
Yes, I think that they probably would, because my father receives perhaps 10,000 letters a day, and so they would probably think that my mother would have more of a chance to read a letter sent to her than my father would.
What's that paperweight over there on top of that manila folder?
Well, this is, as you can see, a 4-leaf clover. And my mother's father came from Ireland. And so she always celebrates her birthday on the 17th, which is St. Patrick's Day, the 17th of March. Although she was really born on the 16th.
Are there other personal things in the room, Tricia?
Yes, there are. Over on the mantle here, you can see the beautiful clock, which is a Louis the 16th. And this was the state gift that President Charles de Gaulle of France gave to my father when my father made a state visit to that country.
I sometimes wonder about state gifts. I notice the clock is wrong now. Does it work?
You can see that this is an unrehearsed show. Yes, it does. When it's wound, it works very well. It keeps very good time. And this clock, as all other state gifts, will eventually be on display in a museum.
You don't get to take them home with you when you leave the way?
No, we really like to share them with the other people.
What about those, what are they, Easter eggs?
Yes, they're hollowed-out Easter eggs. Julie, David, my mother, father, and myself. And a well-wisher from the Midwest made those for our family and sent them to us at Easter time.
Can we invite ourselves to lunch, or at least to see the family dining room?
I think that sounds like a good idea. Let's go.
Tricia, has there always been a family dining room?
Yes, there has, but it hasn't always been on this floor. There was a family dining room right off the state dining room downstairs on the public floor, and this one was completed in 1962, so it's relatively new.
Looks to me like you've got plenty of material for conversation looking at the murals on the wall.
Yes, we're really surrounded by history as we dine here. This is a very important mural that dates from the 1820s. It's a revolutionary scene, and the one right behind you is of the Boston Harbor. And you can see George Washington on his white charger. But before this room was a family dining room, it was used as a bedroom by some members of the first family. This was Tad Lincoln's bedroom. And when Mrs. Roosevelt was here to dinner not too long ago, as Mrs. Longworth, who was Alice Roosevelt, Theodore Roosevelt's daughter, she was sitting right where you're standing, Mr. Wallace, and she exclaimed, My goodness, just to think, this is the room where I had my appendix out in. I spent weeks here recuperating. But she did have a pretty view because this room does look out onto Pennsylvania Avenue and the fountains there.
Is that a desk or a buffet over there?
No, that is a sideboard which originally belonged to Daniel Webster. And if you look closely, you can see the initials DW inside. So we presume that stands for Daniel Webster.
What about the china, Tricia? Do you use state china for a family breakfast?
Yes, we do. We really do make use of the state china. As you may know, every president chooses his own china design, and we're in the process of doing that now. And the one that you see before you is the china that the Eisenhowers chose. It's very elegant and ornate.
You can have a fire while you're eating if you want.
Yeah, we do have a fire almost every night that we have dinner here. And my father absolutely loves to have a fire. In the summer and the spring when it's really warm out and you wouldn't think of having a fire, he'll turn the air conditioning up just so we can burn one.
Hey, your mother once said that he liked to go up to his study, light the fire, turn up the air conditioning to maximum so it'd be bearable, put on some music by Mantovani and look out at the Washington Monument.
That's right. He does that.
Can we go and take a look at that study?
Yes. Shall we go? My father's sitting room is at the other end of the hall, so we'll just walk down this way. As you may know, on the third floor, there are also rooms. And this is where some guests, important guests, such as the astronauts and Billy Graham, stay when they visited the White House.
Is your father the only one in the family who plays the piano?
Well, he's the only one who plays it well. He's the expert piano player in the family.
Does he from time to time?
Yes, he does. But as you know, the presidency is a very time-consuming job. So he doesn't play it as frequently as he used to, or he would like to, I think. But the piano you see here is on loan from the Steinway Company. And the one that was here previously was taken to President Truman's library in Independence, Missouri, last year by my parents.
What is this affinity between being president and playing the piano? There's been a number of them, haven't there?
Yes, well, I think it's a good hobby that is a nice change from problems of state and problems of the world.
And I gather that Sparrow Avenue plays a pretty good piano too, Harry.
Another expert.
Tricia, I take it with my sense of direction that if that was the West Hall, we're coming into the East Hall.
Yes, that's right. And first I'd like to show you the Queen's room.
I suppose the obvious question is why, Tricia, is this called the Queen's bedroom?
Well, it's very appropriately named because 5 queens have stayed here when they have visited the United States. There's been Queen Frederica of Greece, Queen Juliana of the Netherlands, and her mother, Queen Wilhelmina, and Queen Elizabeth, the Queen Mother of England, and then more recently, Queen Elizabeth, when she was Princess Elizabeth. And this summer, when the Prince of Wales and his sister Princess Anne visit the United States, Princess Anne will stay in this room, so that will make 3 generations of the British royal family who have stayed here.
Where do the kings stay?
Well, the kings stay right across the way in the Lincoln Room.
Are there historical associations to the room that you would tell the queens about so that they can feel suitably impressed?
Yes, this room has many historical associations, starting with the bed there, which is very handsome. This bed was in the White House during the Andrew Jackson administration. And the portrait to my right is, I think, one of the most elegant in the house of a First Lady. This is Mrs. William Howard Taft. And to your left, there is a painting of Mrs. Hoover.
She looks like Mrs. Coolidge.
She does very much.
Now, we were on our way to your dad's sitting room or office, or I guess it's the Lincoln sitting room?
That's right. It's just across the hall.
Tricia, a president seems to like some variety in where he works. Your father, for instance, works in the Oval Office, and he works in the Executive Office building. And he also works up here. Now, when does he come up here?
Well, he comes up here usually late at night because, as you know, a president's day is really never ended. And so sometimes he'll come up here even after 12 o'clock and work on a speech or think about a problem or formulate a policy. And where he usually thinks about these things is in this chair, which obviously is not part of the White House collection.
Is that from home, or is that...
Yes, this is from our apartment in New York. This was my father's favorite chair there. And so we brought it along with us and put it in this room. And, of course, it's surrounded now by all of these chairs and furniture that were here from the time of the Lincoln administration.
And then I suppose he dictates into that machine?
Yes, and then he gets out his trusty yellow pad and uses that, too, to write speeches on.
And what in the world is that towel or whatever that is folded up beside you over there?
Oh, this?
Mm-hmm.
This is a very historical bone. This bone belongs to my father's dog, his Irish setter, King Timahoe. And sometimes when my father's in here and the fire's going, he'll have the dog in with him. And there used to be some dog hors d'oeuvres right in front of the table where you're sitting.
A little snack for the dog?
That's right.
Does your father have a snack in here at night, too?
No, he's on a diet, but his dog isn't. And you can see the fireplace over there. And my father, as I said earlier, really enjoys the fire, and he has it going very often when he's in here. And when he was working on his November 3rd speech, he had an idea at around 2 a.m., and he came into this room and he lit the fire. And he sent the White House Fire Department into an absolute panic. And they arrived here en masse at about 2:30 a.m. to find just a fire burning and my father working on his speech.
Would you say that this room, more than any of the other rooms, is your father's room?
Yes, but we all enjoy being here with him, too. And we have family talks in here, and we come in for snacks and for visits with him.
In this humidor I noticed a little earlier, there are half a dozen cigars. Are any of them Cuban?
No, I really don't think they're Cuban cigars because Fidel Castro hasn't been on a state visit for a long time.
Tricia, thank you very much for showing us through the living quarters. I'm sorry we missed your folks.
Well, they're sorry, too, I'm sure. My father called up when we were having a break and said to say hello to both of you.
Thanks, Tricia.
And I've really enjoyed showing it to you and to all the people who are watching, and I hope that many of them will be able to come through the White House personally and walk through these rooms and walk through history as they do.
Most countries have a head of state, like a king or ceremonial president or something, and separately a chief of government, like a prime minister. The head of state gives out medals and goes to luncheons. The prime minister makes policy. So you can have an emotional feeling about Queen Elizabeth, even if at the moment Prime Minister Wilson infuriates you. We're different. Our president is both head of state and chief of government. What this means is that at any moment of American history, we are interested in the White House and the White House family as a kind of national distillation of families. Our first family, no matter what controversial matters the president, as a partisan chief of government, is engaged in.